Unsyndicated presents Shep and Sean, featuring Matt Shepard and Sean Baligian.
Happy Monday to you. I hope you all had a wonderful, wonderful Thanksgiving. Shep, I hope you and your family had a wonderful Thanksgiving as well. How are you,
We
pal?
did. I hope you and yours did as well, Sean. I'm sure ours was a little bit shorter than most, but because a lot of people took the entire weekend, and you and I were downtown, but it was well worth it. We had a great time.
Oh, wasn't that fun? I'm glad. Seriously, Shep, I'm glad that you brought that up because it was awesome for me to be able to do that. And, I got a chance to see you and Rob Rubik in between the games and everything. What a great vantage point being for every other game that I've been up there. I've been up on the 7th floor where you're looking straight down.
Oh, right.
But literally the FanDuel box is the primetime box. What a great vantage point to call a game, man. Great action all weekend,
Yeah, it's fantastic. Now picture this. Now, of course, if you're doing a game there from a national perspective, CBS, Fox, whatever, you get that whole booth like you and I had, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're doing preseason games, like I did for 10 years doing Lions games, cut the booth in half.
Really?
Yeah. I get one side, or the Lions broadcast gets one side, and whoever they're playing gets the other side.
Okay.
So not as spacious, right? I mean, it's still cool, great vantage point, but not quite as spacious.
Yeah.
So you had fun though, right?
Oh, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
You know what? And Shep, honestly, I think you know this better than anybody. The FanDuel crew were just a good bunch of dudes.
Yeah.
Like, it was great just chatting with them, and everybody's there rowing in the same direction. It was a great time, man. It really was.
It's very professional. It's friendly but professional, and it makes you go, you know what? I could see myself doing this for a long time. I've worked for them since 1998, 99.
Wow.
And have made some really good friends there. Not just people you work with, but people who you consider friends. And I've enjoyed doing so many different events, but I'm glad you experienced it because I knew you'd fit right in.
Thank you.
It's just too bad that we had, they were shitty games. Let's face it. They were. I mean, they were blowouts. I don't even know if those are the best teams in the division. It's really unfortunate. I mean, I thought I would have at least a couple competitive games, and it didn't turn out to have really any. And it was really disappointing. I'm sure it was disappointing for fans too.
Yeah, some history was made, watching a guy go for 6 and, looking at some of the numbers and rushing numbers and all of that was fantastic. But yeah, I mean, as well as I do, it's fun. Grant Perry has 3 state championship rings. Like,
That's
come on.
crazy.
And the funny thing about it is Grant Perry talks about the one they didn't get. I mean, that's the crazy thing, for all those great teams under the legend Al Fracassa.
Yeah.
He talks to me about the one they didn't get his senior year. He was able to get one freshman, sophomore, junior year.
Yeah.
And then I think it was De La Salle beat them in his senior year. But what an experience. I mean, those kids that won state champions, man. How can you put a price tag on it?
Yeah, congratulations to all of them, and the MHSA does a really good job. John Ross, people don't know who he is, but John Ross is in charge of the communications of the MHSA. He does such a wonderful job of making sure people like you and I are prepared for the games, and they put a lot of love in it, a lot of great community stories. Wish we could get to every single one of them. But sometimes the games, just don't allow us to do that. Hope people enjoyed the coverage because it's really good stuff. And I love the fact that, we saw some new teams in there, and I think that's kind of cool.
Yep. Great dude. I'll echo your sentiments. Tom, thank you for the kind words. He said, great job on calling the state football championship games this weekend. Shep, I got to get your take on Michigan and Ohio State. Listen, I like watching games where I don't have, and I'm serious, I don't have a rooting interest. You know what side of the fence I sit on. I don't care. I always like to sit back, especially when I was working in Toledo. I like to fan the flames. That was the front lines. I always called Toledo the front lines, Yeah. And what really pissed off a lot of Toledo residents is there were a lot of people in Toledo that were Michigan fans.
Sure.
And for whatever reason, that just infuriated a lot of the Buckeye fans.
Well, it's closer to Ann Arbor than it is Columbus. So you can understand why. Yeah.
Right. Tom said, great job and good evening. Thank you. Chris said, huge upset win by Michigan. No doubt about that. I want to get your take, though, because I was talking to some of my buddies who were Michigan fans about this. And when you don't have a rooting interest, you're watching a game. I don't know if you got the same feeling I did, and you were getting ready for a broadcast, in fairness. But about midway through the fourth quarter, I was like, Ohio State's done. This is about if Michigan can put together a good old-fashioned drive, Bo Schembechler, 3 yards in a cloud of dust, and even get themselves into a field goal position. Shep, I really got the impression that Ohio State had Michigan on the brain. And I told some of my buddies this, and they were like, shut up, you're messing with me. And I'm like, no, I'm serious. That was my take in watching that game. So I guess for that game to end up the way it didn't exactly shock me that way.
Yeah, it stunned me. It stunned most everybody.
From the fourth quarter on is what I'm saying. Yeah, but
yeah, I thought when Sawyer intercepted it in the end zone, I thought that was it. I thought, okay, this team is going. First of all, there's a couple things. First of all, it stunned me that Chip Kelly and Ryan Day became so stubborn and unwilling to use the outside. I thought for sure in the second half. Matter of fact, I was watching the game at home, but before I head down to Ford Field, and the people I was watching with, I said, you watch that third quarter, you watch what happens. I said, Ohio State's going to flip it. They're not going to run the ball. They're going to throw it all over the yard. All right. They didn't do that. And they just kept running it right in the A and B gaps. And I couldn't understand why. I'm like, what are you guys thinking? Or maybe I started questioning myself, Sean. Am I wrong? Why would they not use their receivers? Why are they so hell-bent on trying to win the rushing war? And perhaps it's because the previous 22 games, the winner has won the rushing battle. So maybe they got that on the brain. I don't know. When Sawyer intercepted Warren in the end zone, and I thought it was a great play, first of all. It was a great play. It was just poor execution on Michigan's part. You were calling a game. I was watching with members of our crew in the booth, and they're like, what a stupid play. And I said, that's not a stupid play. It's stupid. It's bad execution. It's a great play. The guy's wide open, for crying out loud. And so when he did that, I thought, okay, now they're going to go down the field and they're going to get what they need. And you're talking about a minute 57 worth of time of possession in the fourth quarter, no points, no yards or 1 yard passing, hardly any yards rushing, 7, I think. To see what they did was almost unfathomable. You would think that somebody had to get paid off to do something the way Michigan manhandled them. The credit I give, obviously, Wink Martindale, but Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant were unbelievable. They were wrecking balls against that offensive line. They had probably their best games of their lives. And good for Michigan, because they literally did shock the world with a win like that, I think.
And Shep, I hope you understand what I'm saying. It hit me in the fourth quarter. Like up until that point in time, I'm sitting there going, I can't believe they're even in the game. And more on that in a second, because our buddy Mike Hushak from Wealth Advantage said, was this the worst loss for OSU against Michigan? There's only one other one that I can think of, and I'll get to that in a second. But I don't know, Shep. I've seen a lot of football, okay? And in about the midway point of that fourth quarter, I sat back and I was like, oh, I've seen this before. They're done. This is about Michigan finding a way to just 3 yards here, 4 yards there, 3 yards there, first down, find a way to get a field goal. And honest to goodness, they have Michigan in the brain. Shep, the one that I think about was 96, where Ohio State was 10-0, and Michigan was a very mediocre 7-4. And they went to Columbus and beat Ohio State 13-9. They were number 2 in the nation. Ohio State still ended up going to the Rose Bowl, ended up beating a fraudulent Jake Plummer and ASU. But that was the only one that I could think of. There was no business for Ohio State to lose that game in the shoe in 96. And quite frankly, there was no business for Ohio State to lose that game on Saturday.
Yeah, that may have propelled Michigan in 96 to what they did in 97. I don't know the answer to that, but it may have been. I didn't, obviously you and I didn't see this game, but there's only one other time where an unranked Michigan team went into Columbus and beat a ranked Ohio State team, and that's 1950.
Yeah,
I think the final score was like 13-9 back then or something like that. I just, at least in 96, forgive me if, I don't recall every single player on the roster, but they had some good players.
Mm-hmm.
They had some guys who you could see getting better and were eventually going to be in the league. This team, without Loveland, who's one of, if not the best tight end in the country, without Will Johnson, who is, if not the best, one of the best cornerbacks in the country, and a walk-on quarterback, wide receivers you don't recognize, tight ends you don't recognize, on offensive line that has been more than disappointing, and backup people in the secondary, I would say, yeah, I would say this is probably, at least in my lifetime, I would say this is the biggest upset of Michigan against Ohio State, and perhaps Ohio State's worst loss in the history of the series in my lifetime, for sure.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing to me. I sit back, and we were talking about this the other night, Shep, and from a Michigan State standpoint, the Kenneth Walker the third game in 2021 was unbelievable, especially because he did it against that defense, right? I mean, for him to do it against that defense, and Aiden Hutchinson was I would trade that game in a heartbeat to end up where Michigan ended up, to end up as the Big Ten champions, to end up in the college football playoff. And that's what I was saying the other night, and it wasn't going, hey, Michigan, shame on you or anything like that. But as devastated as Buckeye fans are, I would take going to the playoffs. And Shep, the crazy thing about it, they still might host a game. I mean, that's the craziest thing about it, that Ohio State might still host a game.
A lot has to go right for them to do that, though.
Sure.
Right. So I think so. Here's I would push back on that. I'm not saying I wouldn't take it either, but having lost 4 in a row, okay, this is not an isolated incident. This is not just, hey, you get to go to the playoffs, so absolutely you should take it. You've got seniors who've never beaten them, right? You've got Michigan players who've never lost to them. You've got Michigan players who've never lost to both Michigan State and Ohio State, which is crazy. But you've got guys who were, they talk about the $20 million payroll. You talk about 364 and what they have talked about from the day they lost a year ago all the way. You talk about incentive. That's why I think incentive you can only take it so far. The emotion of everything only takes you so far in any game, right? I loved it when, Michigan's walking onto the field, and Ohio State kills me when everybody says, that tunnel at Michigan Stadium, they got to do something about that. And yet the opposition can walk out of Ohio Stadium, and the entire Buckeye team can line up along the sidelines with only the woman who doubles as a Walmart greeter standing between them two, right?
Right.
And suggesting, back up. And they can chirp left and right. Like, you're going to intimidate them. Did Jack Sawyer really think he was going to intimidate anybody at Michigan when he's 0-3 against Michigan? Give me a break, man. Yeah. Be real. Be smart.
You know what? The 0-4 point taken, I still, as a fan, give me the playoff. I'll take the playoff every day. Okay, that's cool. That sucks. Hopefully we get you next year. We're going to the playoff. Enjoy. You know what I mean?
Here's my question to you. Do you think a loss like that can have a lasting effect?
Yes.
And 100%. And I agree with you. If so, and it takes you away from your team, you're building, not like they can't win on the road. Sure, they can beat whoever they play on the road, but it makes, I think, the path obviously more difficult. And if you believe, like I do and you do, that it's a more challenging, mental situation for them, maybe just maybe you take the win instead of the situation that Ohio State's in.
Well, I think there's a couple different ways.
They're not going to a Big Ten championship game. I mean, it's Penn State and Oregon, and I'll guarantee you Ohio State goes, we're better than Penn State. We've already proven that. And we should have beaten Oregon. We only lost by 1 out in Eugene. So don't tell me that we're not as good. That's, I think, the mental stuff that they're thinking about.
And I think that, Shep, is why I would also say I would welcome the challenge, because you look at who they've lost to in Ryan Day's time. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's really loaded Michigan teams, right? It's Oregon, and then it's this one where they clearly had Michigan on the brain. So the opportunity to redeem themselves and to write the last chapter, especially for the guys who are going to be gone, that's what I would look at. Bill, thank you for the kind words. Great effort on the MHSA football final calls, fellas. Thank you. I got to bring something up.
When you say they have Michigan on the brain,
they have Michigan on the brain.
Are you referring to players or coaches?
Both. 100% in my mind, Shep. I use as evidence. I use as evidence the way they called that game.
Yeah,
the point that you brought up.
Okay, but that's coaches.
100. And
how does Will Howard have them on the brain when he's never played them? How does an Alabama transfer running back have them on the brain when he hasn't played them? Well, he's played them once before.
Because all the other guys that have been a part of 1 or 2 or 3 do the here we go again thing. I watch Ohio State did here we go again. There's no doubt in my mind. By the way, they called the game with the field goals. There was so much. It's Michigan. I will stand by that. I watched that, and that's why I told my buddies who were Michigan fans, I was like, dude, come on, this is your game. Ohio State's done. The way they were, and I remember that in 2015. When Michigan State went down there with the backup quarterback, and what Urban Meyer did that day was criminal. It was give Ezekiel Elliott the ball, and for whatever reason he didn't do it. And the longer he let Michigan State hold around, I was watching it with my son. I was going, Jack, we might win this game. Nah, come on, Connor Cook's out. I was like, no. The way he's calling this game is criminal, and they left the door open, and obviously a windmill later, and we know what happened there. All right, I have to bring up something, Shep, in a second. We're talking about great upsets, and in my mind, there is one upset, and then there's everything else, okay? And I think you know where I'm going with this, and I'll explain why I feel that way when we come back as well. We were blessed. Yeah, we were blessed by the presence of one Michael Husak just a second ago. And if you are ready to take charge of your financial future, look no further than the Wealth Advantage Group, located in historic downtown Northville and owned by those two brothers right there. The guy on the left, you know why he's smiling, Mike Husak? Because Michigan won. That's why he's smiling. They understand that your financial goals are as unique as you are. And that's why they offer personalized expert guidance to help you navigate the complexities of financial planning. Now, whether you're saving for retirement, getting ready to sell your company, or already in retirement, they can help guide you through every step of your financial journey. They work with clients throughout all stages of life. They have clients in over 20 different states. The investment world is a complex one. So if you're ready to start taking your finances more seriously, it might be time to work with the experts. Reach out to the Wealth Advantage Group at 248-773-8574. Check out their website at www.thewealthadv.com. You can talk Michigan football with the guy on the left. You can talk Notre Dame football with the guy on the right.
Who's happier today? Who's happier today?
They look brilliant. I don't care what anybody says.
When Notre Dame, look, you and I said this when they lost to Northern Illinois, which I would contend is the best win in college football this year. It was at Notre Dame. They lost to Buffalo the very next week, but I digress. If you're Notre Dame, you are pinching yourself. You're fourth now in the country.
Yep.
Michigan's pinching themselves to a certain extent, although they're probably kicking themselves. If they had a quarterback, if they had any quarterback whatsoever, they would probably be at least on the peripheral of possibly getting in. If they're on the periphery of getting in, you've got wins over, if you got a quarterback, you got probably wins over Illinois, Washington, played Indiana really tough.
Indiana. You win that game. There's no doubt. And that, Shep, you touched on his name, and I said this Saturday night. The much maligned Wink Martindale deserves a lot of flowers today. The way that defense just went like this as the season progressed, and really from the second half of that Indiana game on.
Right. Well, really, in the second halves, since the bye week, the second halves, The most points they gave up to any one opponent was 10. And that's Michigan State in the second half of those games. That's pretty impressive.
Gordy said all-time upset has to be USA over USSR. I always laugh when I hear people say this, and if this means I'm a hockey snob, then I'm going to snob away. It is not fair to compare Lake Placid to anything else. It isn't fair.
Agreed.
It's not fair. You know what it shows me? And okay, I'm going to apologize. I'm going to warn you again. I'm going to be snobby here. It shows me you have a fundamental lack of understanding about the game of hockey. That's what it shows me. Because name any other upset. Any. Do you know the one thing that you have to say? A 1 beating a 16. Virginia losing. Oh my goodness gracious. How could a 1 lose? Those are 2 Division I college basketball teams.
Right.
You had professional players playing against college kids. And I win. Don't try it. You lost already. Just stop. Like there's
legitimate college kids. We're talking teenagers.
Yep. There's that's it. That's where every other upset pales in comparison. It just does. I mean, it's not even Division II beating Division I. Okay. This is something entirely different. And that's why every other. So if you want to talk about great upsets, we can do that, but just make sure you put Miracle on top.
That's a life of its own. They're not making movies, and they're not stopping broadcasts, and they're not telling people, be careful, we're going to give something away if Michigan beats Ohio State. All right. That's something they did for USA Russia. By the way, did I ever tell you the story how I've called games at Lake Placid in that arena?
Did you really? I never knew that.
Yeah, I did it. I called for CBS College Sports. It was thrilling to be there. Could not believe how small it was, but was really impressed with what a nice little town Lake Placid was, because I'd never been there before.
Yeah. Upstate New York is very, very beautiful.
Actually, it is. You're right. Yeah.
So somebody asked a question, and I'm really interested, Shep, to hear that he's bigger upset. Saban taking Michigan State into the horseshoe and not upsetting undefeated and number 1 Ohio State. That was in 98, or 2024, and what Michigan did.
Who am I to judge? I mean, anytime you play in a rivalry, so it's probably a two-sided coin here. Anytime you play a rivalry game, should you be that surprised that it's that competitive? And on the other hand, when it's a rivalry game and you get that upset, you would think the other team should understand it, or should at least have been better prepared, because it is that rivalry game. So, I mean, there's a couple of different ways I think you look at it. I'm not going to sit there and say one was greater than the other. It's just 2 really impressive wins. I think I think Penn State's the loudest. I've been to every stadium in the Big Ten, just about. Penn State's the loudest. I think Ohio State's second loudest. So you go in there.
I would go in the opposite direction. I'd go Ohio State and then Penn State, but I can understand your argument.
It can be, in fairness, I saw mine in a whiteout on a Saturday night game. So it was absolutely electric. But been to Columbus a couple of times for Michigan, Ohio State. It's vitriol at the highest level. It's stupidity at the lowest level. It's ignorance. And that's why I laugh. I absolutely started almost belly laughing when they felt like it was a lack of sportsmanship or all this other stuff. When I went there on a couple of different occasions, part of Michigan football radio, people were literally throwing batteries at me.
It's insane.
Because I had a Michigan radio broadcast coat on, and people were sitting there throwing things at me. And I'm thinking, I literally had to turn around and say, dude, you realize I'm with the broadcast team, right? They're throwing batteries at you, and you're on the broadcast team. Stop with the whole let's be classy crap, okay? This is what happens. Spitting, calling names, which you and I can handle, but the throwing of things at people for no reason is absolutely asinine.
Shep, we encountered the same thing when we got off the bus when I was with Toledo. It was, and this is an in-state rival that you can't even say rival, in-state team. Yeah. And you knew what was going to happen that game, and it eventually happened. I couldn't believe it. And I'm looking at him going, 2 things. I'm a dumb broadcaster. Second thing is, we're probably going to lose by 5 touchdowns. It was 7 touchdowns, but I mean, you get the point. The state high school basketball championship game in Indiana, that was basically Class 8 versus Class 1. High school kids.
High school kids, right? They're still all high school kids.
Impressive as it is.
No shot clock.
Yeah. No shot clock. High school kids. I mean, I'm not taking anything away. Professionals who kicked the piss out of all-star teams from the NHL just a few months earlier. You can go ahead and fact check there if you want, okay?
And beat Team USA by a 10-2 score or whatever it was, right?
10-1. Yep.
10-1.
Literally, no joke, a year previous beat the hell out of NHL all-star teams. All-star teams. And then lost in the biggest game of those college kids' lives. No comparison. That's that.
Yeah, right. I mean, even if people wanted to say, what was the PGA Championship with Tiger Woods lost? Y.E. Yang, remember, in the in the mid 2000s? They're 2 professional golfers, right?
Yep.
So your point is the perfect point. College kids against seasoned veteran pros who are used to playing with one another for over a decade. There's a huge difference. They
house them together as teenagers. Yes. Like legitimately. I mean, that's why they were a machine and so lethal.
The one thing I was going to bring up, and I don't know if it's appropriate, but who beat Team USA in the Olympics in basketball? Argentina?
Yeah, wasn't that it? Yeah, I don't remember.
So maybe whenever was that 2008 or 4 or something like whenever that was. Perhaps that's in the conversation, but they're pros, like you said. Yeah. So how do you come to grips?
You can't beat it. And Jerry, like Jerry said, I agree. Miracle on Ice is number 1. App State, and you could play that game 100 times, and Michigan's going to win that game. We know it. I was in Mike's front room watching that game, by the way. Hi, Mike. Shout out, Mike. I remember that. But all jokes aside, Shep, as big as that was, nothing. Come on, they were pros. They were legends. They were, and much like you were talking about some of the knucklehead things that Ryan Day did during that game. The great Viktor Tikhonov got pissed off at arguably the best goalie in the world and said, "You no play anymore."
Thank you.
Thanks. Appreciate it. That sounds good. It was like, there has to be a lot of things that happen to kind of get to that point.
Best sports movie of all time, too, by the way, in my opinion.
Miracle on Ice?
Miracle.
Yeah.
It's my favorite sports movie.
Miracle's outstanding.
Yeah. That and Hoosiers.
Yeah. Oh, I can watch Hoosiers all day. Let me tell you about Legacy. Did you know that thousands of Metro Detroiters have already called Legacy Partners to get help with their home and auto insurance? Our friends at Legacy Partners are one of Southeast Michigan's top independent insurance agents, and they provide a full-service, one-stop solution for all of your insurance needs, personal and business, large and small. Legacy has helped our listeners by fixing mistakes other agents have made, asking the right questions to get the right coverage put in place to properly protect you. And help save you some money. We all want to do that right about now. Chances are, if you haven't checked your policies in the last year, you're probably paying too much and you could be underinsured. So what are you waiting for? Give our friends at Legacy a chance to help with your home, your cars, life insurance, Medicare enrollment, or your business insurance needs. Give them a call, 586-209-4106, or visit legacypartnersins.com to get started with your new quotes. Shep,
Alan had a good comment, Sean. He said when they missed the second field goal, I knew it was over. I thought the first one was a fluke, but the second one, I was like, yeah, they're choking. That's along the lines of what you were saying. That's when he felt that it completely shift, right?
Yep.
Something's up there. It's amazing that they allow that to kind of creep in, but that's true. Bill said Ryan Day has to win at least 2 playoff games to save his job. I think he's got to win the national championship. I don't think he can save his job unless he wins the national title. How about you?
I agree. You know what? Part of me says if they get a home game, let's play the game of pretend. They get a home game. say they beat an SEC opponent, they give them one more kick at the can with that. But I wouldn't be surprised. They're a different breed down there. Look at all the success that John Cooper had. And they are. I'm not even being funny. They're different. You know what? Claire, if you're watching right now, I did this thing a few years ago where I told people, I said, this is not a joke. If you're driving down to Columbus for the first time, okay, this isn't a joke. This isn't being funny with the rival. It's probably in your best interest to go with a group of people, or at least find another group of Michigan fans.
And change your license plate too.
Right. And Shep, people think it's funny. And it was funny. Claire, the Buckeye fan, called in and he goes, listen, I'm a Buckeye fan. I'm not proud of it, but he's not lying. And I'm like, I've been down there as a broadcaster, as a fan. They're a different breed. It is the closest to an SEC fan in Big Ten country that you will find. They're just a different breed. There's no other way to say it.
I don't disagree with that. Bill said, does the MHSA need to fix the football playoff system? Private schools represent 16% of all high schools in Michigan, yet they win the football state titles at a 34% clip. Seems like an obvious correctional imbalance, no? I have a friend who has, Bill, to your point, has said they should have separate state championships for the private schools. All I would tell you, and I wouldn't necessarily fight that, but I would remind you that just because they're private and they're getting kids from all over, there's plenty of public schools that are doing the same thing. There are plenty of public schools that have competed for state championships where kids are going from different cities, and Sean knows exactly what I'm talking about, different cities to play at that school. And it happens at just about every division.
I don't think that people understand, Shep.
Nope.
I know more than I should know, and I'll leave it at that. Yeah. I'll just say 100% say that you're right. And I don't think people understand that. They don't have any grasp of that. Right. And of course,
it's just a bubble. I had a friend of mine say, you've got to, because my kids went to public school in Bloomfield, and they're like, they draw from, a big place, and his kids went to Rice. I said, what are you talking about? You got kids at Rice who have an address at Rochester, have an address in Farmington, in Novi, and Milford, and so on and so forth. Our kids are all Bloomfield Hills, but our kids aren't competing for state championships. There's a lot of schools, big name schools, that are bringing kids from all over the place, and nobody bats an eye. So don't think that it's just the Catholic schools or the private schools that are getting fat and happy because people are paying to get there. There's a ton of people coming in from different area codes to play in a lot of these public schools too.
Yep. And I can't tell you how, and I can tell you this in hockey, what's happening is now you're seeing a lot of these co-ops. You're seeing 2, 3, 4 schools come together, or, oh my gosh, we don't have a goaltender. Maybe we can go to this area and see if we can co-op with them. Some
of that I felt was legit when it first started. And the reason I felt it was legit is because you don't have as many hockey players. All right. So for example, if it's Birmingham United and they're taking kids from Groves and Seaholm, that I can understand, because you just don't have that many kids playing hockey, and some of those kids might be playing travel hockey, and you can't mesh the two during the season. So I get that. You're fortunate if you got a school where you've got enough kids who actually can play hockey and play decent hockey, but now even that has dipped into the realm of crossing a line or two, I think.
Yeah. It happens more times than you can shake a stick at. I don't know how else to say it. It's happening everywhere, and some very prominent programs, and I'm not going to say any names, had a little trouble with it going and getting guys. It's Shep, I was about to call it the dirty little secret. It's not exactly a secret any longer.
No. It hasn't been a secret for the people who, I'm not saying that you and I are in the know, but I've talked, you and I are friends with Mick McCabe. Mick McCabe has talked about this for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? It's not the only way people haven't recognized it is because, oftentimes the only time we really pay attention to high school athletics is when it finally gets to a state championship situation.
Sure. Yeah. Great answers. Thanks, fellas. Well, and with hockey, it's the financial aspect as well. Yeah. And I think if you're a good player and you want to stay in high school, if you have an opportunity to go, I use the term, to one of the usual suspects, you go play for one of the usual suspects.
For sure. I get it. I mean,
it's the way it is.
There's a reason CC has won as many state championships as they have, and no one's really even close. It used to be CC Trenton when I was growing up. I know Heartland's good every once in a while. There's a few others, some places further up north, but for the most part, I mean, it's the juggernaut right there. Mm-hmm. And that's what people see. They see, okay, they're playing for state championships in football. I think they have 11. They've got more high school state championships in hockey than anybody else, more wrestling state championships than anybody else. Oh, look at all the kids. Well, yeah, but, there's back when I played, and this is a long time ago, one of our rivals, they had kids from all over the state coming in to play with them, and they were winning state championships. Okay? And they were beating bigger teams too. So
I think a lot of it has to do with coaching as well. Like, my longtime friend took over at Livonia Stevenson, and point blank, we were always good, sometimes very good, but we were never go contend for a state title. No. One time very, very close, but I mean, that was an exception to a rule. And Mitchell came in there, former Western Michigan goaltender, as a matter of fact, and he won a state championship, took the team to the Final Four multiple times and everything. And, you go there, you have some success, and then you stick around. And then the flip side to that is, guess what? If you're a good player in hockey and an opportunity presents itself to go play at Livonia Stevenson, sure, you want to play at Livonia Stevenson. You don't want to play at the other places. You want to go to Livonia Stevenson. I mean, some kids, not all kids. Some kids say, yeah, I want to go to Churchill. I want to go to Franklin. Now it got so bad, Shep, unfortunately, Franklin and Churchill have a combined team now. They're the Red Stallions. So that's the way that it happened. So
Bill said, hockey, it's a financial aspect. Correct. Well, I think every sport is expensive to play these days. All right. Now, hockey, it's because you got to pay for the ice, right? Once you get a pair of skates and you're a little bit older, if you get some really good skates, you're going to have those skates for a while. You're going to end up spending some money on sticks, and they're like $200. I get it. But usually you're keeping the same helmet, shoulder pads, elbow pads, pants, all that other stuff. So I understand why people obviously view hockey as expensive. I hate to tell you this, but travel baseball is really expensive.
It's incredible.
Okay? Basketball, the AAU circuit, when you're going all over the place, that can get a little pricey. Football, maybe not quite as much. You're doing a lot of 7-on-7s in the off season, but you can go to a lot of camps, and those camps can get pretty costly. So I think just about every sport. Look, my kids played travel lacrosse. They were going out east every summer. That got expensive. They played. My youngest son played travel hockey, travel lacrosse, and both were expensive. But the lacrosse stuff is just, I mean. When you're playing out in Maryland and New Jersey, and you're playing on Long Island, and you're playing all the way, out on the East Coast, those trips add up quite a bit. So I think just about every sport is expensive.
Bill said, I want my high school alma mater to co-op all their sports teams with Grand Rapids Catholic Central, the Cougs. Fick, every youth sport is expensive, 100%, Shep. It's amazing. Yep. Absolutely amazing. That's just the way it is.
Try doing cheer, or try doing dance, or volleyball. Volleyball, girls. All over the country. It's unbelievable where they go, And the cheer stuff can be really expensive and dangerous too for a lot of those kids. So hats off to all you parents out there who have your kids involved. I think it's awesome. I think the experience that they gain from that stuff is invaluable. There's nothing like it. My daughter going out and playing out east, and my son playing out east, and my oldest boy playing travel baseball all over the place. Those are memories you always have.
Yep.
And I think you learn a lot from them. So I would encourage everybody to do it. I just think hockey sometimes gets a little bit of a bad rap in that. That's all.
Shep, we're going to wrap this up because I want to go watch America's quarterback. I'm infatuated with Jameis Winston. He is America's quarterback. I don't care what anybody says.
I thought you were going to say Bo Nix. Can I ask you, just real quick, who do you think's the rookie of the year right now?
It's pretty hard to go against Bo Nix. It really is. And
Daniels.
Yeah. You could say that.
Have you looked at Brock Bowers' numbers?
He's unbelievable. Seriously, he's one of the best tight ends in the game right now, and I have no problem saying that.
Dude, he leads the NFL in receptions,
and
he's fourth in receiving yards, and his team is 2-10.
Yep.
Do we associate do we associate individual success, and that's what these awards are, with team success? And should we? Because he's not getting as much love as he should. And I think it's because his team's 2-10 when he's got Aiden flipping O'Connell throwing.
We're absolutely guilty of that. I don't think there's any. I think for me, Shep, the reason why I spit out Bo Nix is I can call myself out. I just never saw anything out of Bo Nix. Honestly, I thought he was a legacy guy. And especially in big games, it just seemed like Bo Nix always faltered in big games. Like both those games against Penix and Washington last year, that was like, for all the Bo Nix Heisman Trophy stuff, it was like both games in particular, when they met for the rematch, I was like, okay, can we put that to bed now? Can we put that to bed now? All this Bo Nix hype and talk and everything. So I think because of that, maybe I spit out Bo Nix more because of my shock. Because I didn't see that coming. No way, no how.
He's really smooth, man. I think he's really smooth the way he plays. I've been really impressed with him. Now, to Bill's question, who's your MVP? It's got to be Josh Allen and then Saquon Barkley.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think Jared Goff deserves to be third.
I made the joke today. We are slowly coming to the time where a certain quarterback in Baltimore, I might just start calling him the Black Tony Romo, because that guy, it is. Listen,
Tony Romo never won MVPs, dude.
No, but you know what? He can put up all these dazzling numbers, and he's probably going to bring a fantasy team or 70 a ring and everything. But when it comes time to the playoffs, man, you better look elsewhere. And really, that's what I mean by that. Of course, Lamar Jackson is a better quarterback and MVP and everything. But in terms of finding a way to win those types of games, I see Tony Romo all over that guy.
Dude, I used to take so much crap from people when I said I'm not a huge Lamar Jackson fan, and they said, "Are you crazy?" I said, "They talk about his running." I said, "I don't want my quarterback to run. I want my quarterback to throw." And I said, I don't like the way he throws. I think he's inconsistent. I don't necessarily trust him. I've been proven wrong. It's okay. I can admit that. He's won 2 MVPs, and he's deserved them both. All right. But I don't know how much I would trust him in a big game. That doesn't mean I trust Josh Allen. I mean, if it's a trust factor, you better go right to Patrick Mahomes. Okay.
Sure.
All I'm saying is when I watch him play in certain games, I think I'm not sure this is a good matchup for him. I like the other team instead.
Yesterday is a perfect example, because if you didn't watch the game and you look at the stats, you're really pissed at me right now. You're really pissed at Shep right now. You are. If you just look at the stats, but if you watch the game, especially in the fourth quarter, and Bill made comment to it, Shep, the amount of throws that he missed were shocking. Yeah. And that's the inconsistency and the questions that lingered about him. It's amazing to me. It really is amazing to me.
Yeah. He's got good weapons. I would argue he's got more weapons than Josh Allen. Wouldn't you?
Well, now that Josh Allen added a true number one receiver, maybe not now, but when the season started, yeah. When the season
number one receiver?
Oh, I think he is. I think
Amari Cooper?
I think he is. I mean, he's better than anything Baltimore has, right?
Oh, I don't know. I guess, I'd probably take him over Zay Flowers. I think Baltimore's got more weapons. And when you got Derrick Henry, you got Mark Andrews, Rashad Bateman, and Zay Flowers compared to what Buffalo has, I probably would side with Baltimore's weapons offensively than I would Buffalo's.
Yeah. Josh Allen is the white Lamar Jackson. That's funny. That's good. Skydog, I watched the game. It was shocking. I'm with you, because look, I have a rooted interest right now. Yay, Ravens. I'm screaming for the Ravens right now. I need the Eagles to lose another game or two.
Yeah, exactly right.
We'll hit that in greater detail on Thursday, Shep. Let me talk about Lindsey Broadwell. When it comes time to get yourself a house, you're buying, you're selling, you need to contact the right agent. Who do we recommend? Lindsey Broadwell. Your house is probably the biggest investment you'll ever make, and that's why you need a pro. Lindsey grew up on the main streets of Northville and has expanded her team all over Southeast Michigan. She's an expert in all facets of the business, and when it's time to move, our friend Lindsey and her team will make sure you get the most out of your house and everything goes smoothly when finding your new home. Buyer, seller, even first-time buyers. Make sure you contact Lindsey at BroadwellHomes.com. She'll help you with everything from start to close. Licensed realtor at Real Broker LLC. Start your search today at BroadwellHomes.com. golf.com. Is golf like Chris Osgood and not getting enough credit because of the other stars? Wow, dude.
Yes. Great question.
Shep, I don't know if I've said this to you before. I think one of the things that agitates me, and not, I'm not taking anything away from Hank. Chris Osgood absolutely positively got robbed out of the Conn Smythe Trophy in 2008.
100%. But you know what? And I know we got to get going.
Mm-hmm.
Shame on us. I don't mean you and me, but and Detroit in general, because his entire career in this market, all people said was anybody could play goalie behind that team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have people, and I'm not going to say it's Jerry because it's not, but we have people in this market who are now complaining that he should be in the Hall of Fame. You and I said this a long time ago, that he's underrated and all this other stuff. When all along, all people kept saying was he can't do it, and then when he could do it, well, anybody could with the team like that in front of him, and it was bullcrap. So people in Detroit are just as guilty as those who now underrate him nationally.
Changed his style. Not enough is said about that. Midstream decides I'm going to go be a butterfly goaltender. Saves their ass in 2008. And if you don't believe me, I had multiple guys on the Nashville Predators that I know. And if you think real hard, you can probably figure out who. Tell me they thought that series was over. They were like, this is great. We got Hasek. Hasek isn't Dominic Hasek of 5 years ago, let alone 10 years ago. And they went to Chris Osgood, and then they pretty much smoked everybody's ass from that point on.
Right.
And it really was Chris Osgood. And I'll never forget, I was doing the thing on Fox that night, Shep. And when they announced Hank, it was kind of like, am I missing something?
Yeah.
Who voted for this?
Yeah.
But whatever. All About Catering, full service caterer, graduations, weddings, bridal showers, corporate events, anything you need catering for from 25 to 4,000 people. All About Catering can and will take care of you. See, with Rick and his staff, customer service and satisfaction is their number one goal. So don't sweat your next big event. Just go to allaboutcateringllc.com today to see their menus and all their 5-star reviews. Give them a call, 586-731-1398 to get your event started. Shep, let's do it again Thursday.
You bet, pal. Thank you.
I'm going to go celebrate America and watch Jameis Winston.
Likewise. Thanks, Todd.
See you guys. Much love. Bye-bye.
Shep and Sean, featuring Matt Shepard and Sean Baligian. Executive produced by Sean Baligian and Todd Losey. Theme song, incidental music, and related sound effects are from Still Alive by Anti-Ghost. Engineering, mixing, and graphic design support provided by the Unsyndicated Podcast team. Don't forget to like and subscribe on all your favorite channels. While you're there, be sure to rate and review the podcast. Call the Unsyndicated hotline at 248-237-3257.